And we are live. Welcome. Welcome to the very first episode of I Journeys. I am your host, Borja Gutierrez, and I'm very excited to be with you today for what is the first of hopefully to be many episodes. We already have some exciting guests lined up for the next episode, but we won't talk about that now. This is really exciting to have a few of you joining us already. I see some comments coming in. Most of you joining us on YouTube Live for the very first broadcast. So feel free to drop your comments, your likes. If you have questions for our guest today, which I'll be introducing shortly. But just before we kind of dive in and start talking to our guest, I just briefly wanted to touch upon why I Journeys exists here and why we feel it's important to engage in conversations with change makers. So this is something that I personally take very seriously. I work in a number of different functions sort of related to sustainability, the sustainable development goals. I'm a customer journey expert at Hill, and I also work in a number of other initiatives sort of trying to catalyze investments and catalyze support for projects and for companies that basically help implement the SDG goals. And in that work, I have the amazing opportunity to meet and speak with on a regular basis incredible change makers from across different asset classes, different countries, parts of the world. And I've often thought during these conversations that wouldn't it be great, it feels like I'm in a podcast show or something right now in this incredible conversation. And actually, one of those conversations that I was most inspired by is with the gentleman that will be our guest today, Gajanan Joshi. I met him in Vietnam and was really very inspired. I see him as a personal friend, a sort of mentor, and he really stuck with me. And there's actually we'll be talking about that. There's a story that he told me when we first met in Vietnam that really stuck with me as a person, and we kept sort of has really made me shaped me and how I am. So without further ado, I wanna basically in a second bring Gajanan onto the show and really start getting it into depth. Gajanan is a power project professional slash and we'll talk about that, even though officially he's not, but a journalist. He is, for me, almost like a sort of guru type figure. He's very spiritual as a person, and I feel goes way beyond just a power project professional. But he works currently at Wattcraft, where he does projects, solar power projects, predominantly around different markets in Asia. He has decades of experience working for companies of different, projects of different sizes, different markets. And we're going to talk a lot about some of these markets today and the opportunities for solar in a sort of post-COVID sense. But without further ado, I want to invite Gajanan to join us on the screen. So Gajanan, welcome.
Hey, Pooja, thank you very much. And I wish a great success. As you mentioned, this is your first episode, and I'm very honored. I'm very privileged to be part of your first your episode. And I want to say good morning to everyone. I'm a man from solar industry, and I want to say, even if I meet anybody in the midnight, I will say good morning, because at some part of the world there will be a sun which will be giving the sun rays and the energy.
Thanks so much for being with us today. It's such a pleasure to have you with us, Gajanan. I really thank you so much for being and agreeing to do this, especially for the first episode. I think it's very fitting. So indeed, so what I want to do actually, and also it's lovely to see the comments coming in. People were asking when will it begin? It's begun. I want to sort of, before we get into the solar energy part, which I know is an interesting part for many people to sort of listen into and hear your thoughts and perspectives, I want to first sort of get a little bit more into you as a person, and especially some of the things that drive you. In the conversation and preparing for this, we've had an opportunity to really talk about many different stages in your life. But I mean, I'd like to invite you, maybe if I ask a sort of open question, what would you say, or give us something from, let's say, your childhood that you would say shaped you as a person?
Yes. See, as in everybody's life, For me, my parents are my first teacher. My grandmother, my mother's mother, my maternal grand, that my grandmother, she and my parents, they groomed me. My mother is very a very courageous lady. She taught me the strength, how to gather the strength, and how to face any part of life, any problem in the life. My father is a literary figure in India, in our vernacular language, which is there Marathi in our Maharashtra, where Mumbai is the capital. He introduced me to the wonderful, beautiful world of books. So this is how I started my childhood. I started my first
Sorry,
journey.
just to interrupt you there, sorry, Gajanan.
Yeah.
What kind of, you say, your father was a literary figure. What kind of, what did he write? What did he write about, and what types of literary resources did he?
Yeah, so he started writing in the magazines in the vernacular language, in newspapers. He wrote a lot of dramas for the radio station, which is All India Radio we call. And in those days there was only radio. He wrote dramas for the television. He wrote books. He got many prestigious awards. So he is basically a writer, a drama writer, a story writer, and that is what I get lot of encouragement from him in reading and in articulating our expressions.
Okay. No, interesting, and yeah, no. So this clearly left, and I want to leave that story till the end. Sort of a letter that I'll be honest, I'm not much of a reader. I enjoy consuming knowledge. I'm more of a listener. I enjoy, and that's actually one of the things I enjoy about you, Gajanan, and some of the stories that you have to share. You're a very interesting storyteller, and so I learn a lot maybe through others who read a lot. So I appreciate you sharing many insights and knowledge with me. So sort of by the way, you're joining us now from Mumbai, right? You're based in Mumbai.
Yes, I'm in Mumbai, and I'm joining you from Mumbai.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, no, and I want to use actually the opportunity, and we can maybe come back to some of the younger years, but I want to use this opportunity to sort of pivot and talk a little bit about sort of your experience, and this is something I think we share a lot, which I think is about China. I maybe just to quickly before I for those of you that don't know, that are listening, I think many of you maybe do know me, but I have a strong connection to China. I've lived there for many years. I've been I was in Beijing for many years. We actually overlapped in time, even though we didn't know each other then. Yes, I'm sure we would have been there together at some point. But tell me, how did you end up in China?
Yeah, so actually I started my career in power sector, and we will come to that part later. But I started my career, then I spent 10 years in my utility, state utility company. I worked for few others. And then I got opportunity to work in China in 2007. And that time, it was a tremendous news about China. It's huge planning to conquer the world. And still, that discussion is still going on. So I also had a natural attraction for China. Their infrastructure development, their infrastructure planning, their huge manufacturing setup. They started something around 78, 79 when Deng Xiaoping became the chief in China. So I had that natural attraction. And being a person from power sector, I thought this is an opportunity. If I get, I should go. So that is how I landed in Beijing in August 2007, exactly 1 year before the Olympic and the Paralympic to start. So when I landed there, I had a different image about China in my mind. And everybody talks about China because China is the country for everybody's discussion. And because if you see, there is a natural tendency of human being that if certain things is suppressed, if the information is separate, then there is a lot of scope for discussion and lot of scope for rumors also. So I also had some preconceived idea about China, and that is how I ended there. One thing is I am a vegetarian by choice, so I had a uh, different perception, which is there in everybody's mind, that China can eat anything from whichever there in the air, whichever is moving on the earth, and whichever is moving on in below the water. So that was my image. My image about them was they are very hardworking. They are tremendous in planning. They are tremendous in execution of the program, and of course the huge manufacturing state, a huge manufacturing setup. So that was the image with which I went, and amazing. The first day itself was amazing. When I was traveling from Beijing, at that time it was the old airport, not the new airport. The new airport I have seen coming up in front of me. It is an amazing story. It would have taken many years for some other country. I have seen it. So many things are there, and I can talk many things about that. So if you allow me to continue on this,
Yeah, no,
then
maybe just to, because I one of the things that stands out, and because I had the same. I'm curious actually if there's even more as, let's say, what they call there, especially like a Westerner, somebody coming from Europe. I've always seen myself as very international, but I was also quite, in many ways, shell shocked on my first day. I was always fascinated with Chinese culture. But I feel I've spoken to many who have, and also from other neighboring sort of Asian countries who have also been sort of very both positively and negatively surprised, impacted by many things in China. So I'm curious. Also, you talk about, and that was something. I mean, I wasn't really in my time as involved on manufacturing, but the scale of things, right, in China, also beyond just manufacturing, the scale of all infrastructure of everything is just almost, and you're coming from India, you're coming from Mumbai, where I've also seen the hordes.
yeah, of course. See, I can tell you from power sector point of view, the manufacturing setup of power sector equipment manufacturing in India at that time was maximum 10,000 per year. Whereas China, when I interacted with those manufacturers, each one was having at least 30,000 megawatt per year worth equipment manufacturing. And such, there were 3 or 4 major manufacturers. So 120,000 megawatt per year equipment manufacturing, as against 10,000 megawatt at that time in India. So that was the first amazing difference. That is one thing. The second thing which I found, and I think that is very important part, is that the in our society across the world, we assume that 50% is male and 50% is female. With barring few exceptions, we have that percentage difference. I have found the entire 50% of the female strength, China has used it very predominantly, and that is, to me, that is one of the major reason why China is today what China is. We in India, we all our ladies, they work. All our ladies, they work, but their work goes unrecognized. They work on field, they work at home, they work everywhere, but that goes unrecognized. Whereas I have seen the Chinese ladies working in the heavy industry manufacturing, and I can tell you there is an amazing, yes. So there is, I have seen the lady working on the high pressure welding work. I have never seen that. Perhaps today, though I'm in solar, so I don't have the latest update in India. But this is one thing which I have seen. I have seen in the Shanghai area where there are skyrocketing buildings. I have seen that building which is around 70 or 80 storied building, which I seen coming up in front of me. And at the 40th floor that time, that lady was operating the crane. So apart from that, running the taxis, running the buses, amazing. In the night when we are traveling over the highways, you have the toll plazas. I have seen the entire toll plaza in the midnight at 2 o'clock in the night. Everything managed by the ladies, without any fear, without any problem. Amazing thing. And I have to concede that I'm a male, but I can tell you, because of ladies, the efficiency is always higher. This is my fundamental belief after seeing the China.
Yeah. No, I think I also have a lot of anecdotal evidence for that. For those of you that don't know who's listening, my wife is also from China, and this might be a nice bridge to our second thing, because I don't want to get into too much on that. But I've learned on a personal level, but also on a professional level from having lived in China, and having worked with incredible female entrepreneurs, but also within large companies. It's interesting because I also went into China with a lot of preconceived notions on where maybe the role of women in society. And it's interesting also because you see in the history, like when you think of China, or at least a lot of what I would think of China before, I hear that the women have their feet banded, that the role of women in society is very much restricted, and that they're not able to do things. And then I went to China and found the exact opposite. I found that women are incredibly empowered, on many ways. I mean, there are, there's different ways, but what I found at least is that there's also sometimes a difference between where they are. It depends on to me, Chinese culture is very contextual, and that's something probably that I most sort of learned. And I know that you also experienced a little bit with sort of Chinese characters and everything.
Mm-hmm. But Borja, there is another aspect which I want to highlight here, because that is another aspect which touched me a lot. There is a enormous spread of mother tongue education. Even the higher education in the technology, even the higher education in the engineering, that education is being inculcated in the local language, in the Chinese language. And amazing. I have visited Shanghai Electric, Dongfang Electric, Harbin Electric. These are some of the big power equipment manufacturing companies. Harbin, it is at the Siberia border, near to the Russia, the whole with the Russian culture. Then Shanghai, it is a total commercial culture. And Dongfang, which is on the Tibet side. So I have seen the doctorate person who has got the doctorate in the power sector. He has studied across his education in the mother tongue. Now, one thing I can tell you, whether today we are talking in English, but let me tell you honestly, my thinking in my mind is happening in my mother tongue. I am inside, I am translating it into English. But when you have studied in your mother tongue, when you are studied into that, your thinking and your action, there is no time gap, there is no phase lag. And important part is that there is a lot of scope for the innovation. If you take the innovations, the inventions, and the discoveries which have happened, all those people have studied in their own language in those European countries. Even in India, there were few inventions and discoveries. That time, the education was in the mother tongue language. So that is one very, very important thing I have noticed, that the education is in their local language, and I have seen the upgradation of their knowledge is none to anybody else across any English speaking country, whether it is UK, whether it is Europe, whether it is US. So that is one amazing thing I found. That is point number one. The second point I found very, very interesting, and that is very important for the entire world to follow. There are industrial exhibitions which are happening across the world. Now pandemic has somehow delayed it, but in any industrial exhibition in China, you will find a very big hall where all the Chinese universities, they will be allowed to put their stalls, and the universities are exhibiting what are the things happening in their universities about the various subjects, whether it is automobile, whether it is this, whether it is that, all those things. I have visited Three Gorges Dam. If you allow me, I will just quickly tell you. Three Gorges Dam is an amazing one. Okay, it has got, and I went there to not only to see the dam, but my interest was to see the hydroelectric power station. Now it has got in line 32 power stations in line, each one of 700 megawatt. Now, when I went there, I saw that entire thing. I found out of 32 hydropower stations, 16 were imported, and the balance 16 were manufactured in China. And if you see the performance of those 16s, these 16 from the domestic manufacturer, they are performing exactly at par. And some stations manufactured domestically are even performing better. I want to give this message very loud and clear. You should be clear what you want to buy from China, and you will get the best. If you want, you should know. And I have seen that Three Gorges Dam. Three Gorges Dam, amazing. The entire that river, very famous river. There is a logistic happening. Goods and other things are logistically taken from one end to the other through that river. Now, when there is a dam, you know there are two different elevations, because on the upstream you have the water getting collected. On the downstream you have the flow of water. So there is a difference, height difference. I have seen the big ships are getting into the ship locks, and then coming from the ship locks to the downward level, and then moving its journey further. There are 5 stages of ship locks, and that time.
Sorry, what of what ship locks? What?
Ship locks. See, there are 5 stages in which those ships are taken from top to bottom or taken from bottom to top.
Okay.
When you have the dam has got a height. Okay, and here there is the water which is collected, and here there is a downstream where the river is flowing. But the ships are coming from. How can the ship will come to the down? So that ship lock is taking that particular ship down to the further journey. Same thing in the reverse direction. And that time I saw the amazing engineering technology and amazing project management. By that side of ship lock, there was a ship lift which was getting constructed. Recently, I got that ship lift is now working since many years. The ship can enter into the lift like we enter into the elevator, and the ship is brought down or the ship is taking up. Amazing. See, you have to see that. The only comparison to this is there is another dam in Brazil, but I think it is still not comparable. It is still not comparable.
No, it's true. It's with all these types of infrastructure that you see, in different parts of the world, like you said, but the scale, I just that word really sticks with me when I think of China. The scale at which everything happens, and like you said, you have to see it and you have to experience it to really think about, to realize.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk a lot more about solar specifically in a while too, where I know obviously China, as a global manufacturer of components, including panels and everything, and now we're talking about storage, but also other renewables, but also as a domestic market. It's incredible the size of the project. But there was one thing that you mentioned earlier, which I also really connected to and wanted to quickly discuss, and that's sort of on the Olympics. And this is a while back, but I think this is there's a few things that you mentioned from the Beijing Olympics 2008. I was also in Beijing. I'm sure that we crossed paths because I attended also a few of the events. I was fortunate enough that time to get a few free tickets from work as a prize. We had an incentive. That's a whole other story. But I was also, again, on the same topic of scale and things. Beijing, the way in which it changed in the year, 2 years, 3 years before, but especially in that last year before the Olympics was incredible. But tell me, what was your role? You had a role in the Olympics, right? What was your role? How did you experience that?
Yes. In life, you come across lot of accidents, and this is one accident which happened in my life, and which was a very good accident. I would say a pleasure accident which happened. See, before Paralympics, there is a Olympic, and during that Olympic period, which Olympics started on 8th of August, and during that period there was 15th August, and 15th August is a very, very important day in any Indian's life. And in China, 15th August, 26th January, the Indian people, they assemble at the Indian embassy, and we celebrate flag hosting, and we celebrate our Independence Day on 15th August and Republic Day on 26th January. So that time there were few journalists, sport journalists from Mumbai. They had come to cover that sports event, and I came across those people because they had also come there to attend that 15th August ceremony. And they were fortunately from Mumbai. They were also from my same language. So we interacted. We started interacting, and one of that journalists, I would like to mention his name. His name is Vinayak Dalvi. That time he was working for a vernacular language newspaper, Lok Satta, and he had an assignment to write every day about the different aspect other than the sports. He was supposed to write on different aspects of China, and that was his goal other than the sports event. And when I met him, he said, Mr. Joshi, can you help me? I said, yes, whatever I can help you. And my nature is I get mingled with the local people. I interact with those people. So there are amazing friends I have in China even today. So I started giving him various subjects. And in the night 2 o'clock, he used to finish that article. He used to tell me, see how the article is. I would say, yes, perfect, go ahead. And that is how he completed this entire balance episode of subjects. And then those people, they went back, because after the Olympic, there is a gap of 2 to 3 weeks for the Paralympic, because Paralympic is for the physically challenged people. And this is the wrong word. Later on, I found they are not physically challenged. We are actually physically challenged people. I will tell you why. So there is an arrangement they have to make. They have to make those slides for those wheelchair travelers and all those things. So within that 3 weeks, and I was doing my own business work there, my job I was doing. One day I got call from Mumbai, and another name I want to mention, that is Sandeep Sawan, who was that time working on IBM Lokmat. So he had also helped me in understanding many things. So he gave me a call on one day evening that we have registered you as a journalist in Paralympic to cover the Paralympic for our channel, and please go there. Your name is already there. I said, how come? I don't know anything about the journalism. They said, we know, you know everything. I said, I have not done anything. No, those 15, 20 days we have seen you will cover. Then I said, okay, if you have done this, then I have to see. That is where, if you get the challenge, you have to fulfill it in your best ability. So I went there. There was a lady who was taking care of all this registration of the journalist. Her name is Steffi. I went there. She gave me my card, my accreditation, everything. She gave me those mementos and all those things, the writing books and all those things, reference books, everything. She gave me all input. That entire voluminous one bag she gave me, and she said everything is inside. You read, all schedules are there, everything is there. And that is how I became a accidental sports journalist for Paralympic. So this is where...
Yeah. No, this is really interesting. And as you were speaking, this is an interesting story. As you were speaking, I was just showing a photo of you at the sort of Olympics desk with these crowds behind you. Yes. Also, but actually, you get there are, and people who don't believe it, boom.
Yeah.
Who did you meet?
Yes. So unfortunately, this guy is today serving the sentence in jail. But this guy is called a blade runner. He doesn't have both the legs below the knee, and he run on the blades. He won that day the 100-meter sprint, and he was the gold medal winner. And I took his interview, and I met him. And you see at the background there is a table on which there are microphones. So after every event, when these sportsmen who won the medals, gold, silver, and bronze, they sit. And then journalists ask the question. So I asked few questions to him, and I don't know. So after this entire interview, he asked me, I want to talk to you and have a photograph. I said, very good. I also want it. So this is how And I said, but I want to show your gold medal. So that is how he has hold that gold medal. And after that, there used to be, there was a planned Commonwealth youth games in Pune, and he was supposed to come for that. So he is the person who is running on the blade. And see the amazing part here. He was not satisfied with his gold medal in this Paralympic. He's told me. I asked him, what is your desire?
Sorry, and just to cut you off, in case anyone sort of missed the photo or is only listening in, the photo and who he's talking about, the Blade Runner. I'm sure many of you know, but this is Oscar Pistorius.
Oscar Pistorius from South Africa.
Unfortunately, and I know you don't want to touch upon this, and I don't want to also, but he's known by many people for the wrong reasons. But as an inspiring athlete, you know, it's incredible. And like you said, but he wasn't happy with his gold medal. There's a photo of you with him with his gold medal.
He was not happy with that. I asked him, what is your goal next? He said, I want to run in a normal Olympic. And that is, I think his wish was fulfilled when he participated in the London Olympics. So that is the zeal you get. We have very small things in our life to complain. And these people are amazing. You can say, I went to that swimming pool where this swimming competition of this. Now you see that guy in the lane number 1, that the person with the red t-shirt, he is holding that guy. This guy doesn't have both the limbs from the shoulder, and he doesn't have one leg from the waist. He is having only one leg. And this guy participated in the 50 meters swimming competition. After this competition, see this guy, he is swimming. He completed 50 meters. I went to meet him. He was held by other people, and then he was talking to me. He was from Latin America. So there was someone who was translating for me. Amazing guy. He said, I want to win one day gold medal in this. So all these people, once you meet, then you will come to know that life is amazing. You can't creep on small things. You must move ahead and go ahead. There is another guy in the powerlifting. See, powerlifting, I first time came across that powerlifting situation. If you don't have any power in your body below your waist, you cannot have enough strength to lift this your weight. That guy, if you see that person had won the gold medal in the powerlifting. They have to lie down on the wooden bench, and then they have to. So these are the amazing things which I have seen. But in this swimming pool, I have to give you one very strange incident happened. As I told you, I was an accidental journalist in Paralympic. So after seeing all these amazing people doing this swimming, I could not stop, and I started shooting video in my camera. And immediately one lady volunteer came, and she saw my accreditation gate pass. And I was not allowed to take the video. I was allowed to take the still photograph. I was allowed to write. I was allowed to take the interview. But as I said, I was thrown into the water, and I was not knowing anything. So I said, I'm sorry. This is something which I was not knowing. He said,
wait, so you mean, so you weren't, your permit, like you had a media permit as an official journalist, but that didn't allow you to film?
Yes. Right? Because see, in all these sports events, the authorities are given to different channels. We also hear that. So I said, I'm sorry, I was not knowing it. She told me, if you are not knowing, why you are the journalist? I said, somebody forced me, so I'm here. So she said, okay, then come to our manager. So I went there, and that same lady who had done my registration, she was there. And she said, oh, you are from India? I said, yes. Then she said, you are the only person from India covering this. So this time I am allowing you, but don't take the video henceforth. So I said, okay, if you want, I will delete. She said, no, we believe you. You will not do that, because the way you have honestly said on the very first day, all the things, we believe you. Thereafter, I have not taken. But that is very amazing.
But there's one thing I take from that as well. I find it incredible that you were the only journalist assigned for media from India to cover the Paralympics.
No, it was only accident. Again, I'm saying, see.
Yeah, but there were there other Indian journalists? Did I understand you correctly? You said that part of the reason they let you on is,
if I'm not wrong, I was the only one. I was the only one who was not a journalist. Let us put it. So, but there is another one which I want to tell people, because this is another example, is about the blind person, the blind people who are there. For the blind people, the Olympic Committee gives dog guide. I think many people must be knowing dog guide. So I took that interview also of that person, and that is how I entered into that dog guide. Dog guide world. And then I went to one city in China. There is one city called Dalian, and I used to go there for my business work. But Dalian is one city where such dogs are trained, basically for blind dog guide. So for the blind people, to support blind people, these dogs are trained, and they are trained. And see, there is an amazing adaptation process. There is an adaptation process for child in our human being. There is also a adaptation process in dog for the blind also to adapt the dog. And they see, the authorities, they see whether they can go along with good or not. If not, then they change the dog. So I made that. So these are all amazing things, I can tell you. It is I cannot stop talking if you allow me. So let us move to.
And I also, because I mentioned earlier, I have such an interest for China, and also on this issue of the Paralympics and people with disabilities, I faced, and actually the Paralympics itself for me was quite a sort of life-changing moment. My wife is a sort of central, is a social entrepreneur, and she sort of started based on the Paralympics. She was there also sort of in a volunteer kind of role, helping differently abled people who are based in Beijing, who are folk artists, and helping them to sort of sell their products and their traditional Chinese folk art to tourists who were there for the Olympics. And one of the big things, that this is a great opportunity. They got so much support from the government and an opportunity to sort of sell these products. But they don't really, other than that, have a distribution sort of channel. And so from that, she sort of built up a network in Beijing of companies. And one thing, and you've given a few examples. The one that stuck with me of somebody, and this whole idea of, and very inspiring also. But a lady that I met who, so as I mentioned, my wife is doing this network, and she was looking for different people that she could sort of support, build a network for their products. And then I would sometimes help a little bit. I didn't have a official role, but we were meeting with somebody. So a new artist that I've been introduced to. She's apparently amazing. She does these traditional Chinese paper cuts, basically just literally sort of, some of us have done that as a child, I think in the West, but they do it on a much higher level. These red paper sheets, which are used traditionally in China for different occasions, including New Year's. But so she would do this. I got reminded by this other story you just shared of the limbless athlete at the Paralympics. She also was just at the arms. She didn't have either of her hands. And she was coming, we were waiting for her, and she sort of, Beijing traffic, I don't know if you've experienced it, Mumbai traffic is probably very similar. It's very hard to be on time for a meeting or sort of know the time it will take. But so she, we're there with my wife, and she receives a message from her, saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a bit late." Okay, great. And then suddenly I think to myself, wait a second, didn't you say that she has, how is she sending you messages? How does she even do this art? And she would do everything with her feet. And she even went and sort of, and this is the thing that I found really inspiring and interesting about this. And I'll end with that before we move on, but is how, people, and this I think goes on beyond just people with disabilities or vulnerable people. When we talk about sort of inclusion and all these things, people don't want handouts, right? They want an opportunity to work. They want an opportunity to kind of fend for themselves. And they feel so empowered by that. And they don't want pity. They don't want to be seen as
they
as
don't want sympathy.
Help.
They don't want sympathy. They don't like sympathy. And we are the weak people. We give them sympathy. Absolutely not. You have that photograph of the wheelchair basketball players. Do you have that?
I actually don't have. I was just I was looking for that one. I don't have that one.
No problem. No problem. I met some of those wheelchair lady players from US. Oh, amazing. How they speak, they forget they are on wheelchair. Nothing. When they make the basket, or when they win the tournament, you see how they hug, sitting on the wheelchair, how the ladies hug to each other, enjoying and expressing their joy. Amazing. See, people should understand one thing, that from 2001, when the Olympic was allotted to China, 7 years China was at different levels, was doing everything. 100,000 volunteers were selected from different universities, and they were given training. You will find the job of volunteers amazing. But more than that, I will tell you, the taxi drivers from Beijing and Shanghai, and I think one more city, those taxi drivers were trained for how to speak English, and they were taught 200 common sentences in English, which are normally used as a pleasantry exchanges with any guest. So any guest at that time taking any taxi and getting inside the taxi driver will be speaking a very fluent English within those 200 sentences. Amazing thing. So I am telling you that these are the things. I was very fortunate, and I thank those Indian journalists who pushed me into this, and accidentally I became the journalist. So this is my treasure. I cherish always.
Yeah, no, and it's an interesting one too. And we've sort of talked about this point now for a while, and it's interesting because I really think, at least I really relate to it as someone who has sort of experienced something similar. I'm with the same exact event, but I think this is something that really seems to have shaped you also as a person, and just a funny accident that you end up as a journalist. But I think, it must be for. I start thinking of myself, it's almost like this fake it till you make it kind of thing. And I almost feel like this is what I'm doing here, pretending to be a journalist on the internet here with you. So I can very much relate to it. And, it's an interesting point. But I want to talk a little bit about your solar, right? We really I want to talk about the solar transition. And you were just telling me actually before this call, and I had no idea that I wanted to share a little photo of somebody who, because this is a good transition. This is actually, this photo is who's this of a photo, you and who?
Yeah, so he is a Indian origin, Nobel laureate, Dr. Amartya Sen. And again, here, there was a Diwali festival at the Indian Embassy. And
in Beijing, right? Indian Embassy in Beijing.
Yeah, in Beijing. And there is one Times of India bureau chief, Indian again. So I had a good connection with him. I'm still having very good contact with him. So we were traveling in the same taxi to that venue. And he said, Joshi, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I have nothing to do. Tomorrow is a holiday for me. Why don't you come for a conference? And that conference was on urbanization and environmental challenges. I said, I will be there. Who are there? So he gave two names, one from France university, one from Chinese university. It was in the Peking University, this conference. And he said, Dr. Amartya Sen is going to be there. So I said, oh, that will be a great opportunity. And I was sitting somewhere in the corner listening to all these people. And then there was a question answer. So I also raised my hand. So many people asked the questions. And I got the chance at the end. So I said, I want to ask a question. I don't know whom to ask, but my question is very simple. And that time, Barack Obama had just become the president. And he had mentioned one thing, that one thing if he wants to do, then he wants to have a breakfast with Mahatma Gandhi. So that was his statement. So, and that time, and before that, Nelson Mandela was saying Mahatma Gandhi inspired me. During my first journey to US, Martin Luther King again said Gandhi was my inspiration. And for that, Martin Luther King came to India and visited that place. If you see the Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar, she said Gandhi is my inspiration. So I asked a question there, that in this urbanization, in this environmental challenges, Gandhi was telling about the rural development. So where you find Gandhi as a solution in this? So then Amartya Sen was saying, to whom this question? I said, anybody can answer. Then Amartya Sen gave the answer. But after that answer, he was talking to that journalist, and then he asked, who was that gentleman? Looks to be Indian. He suddenly, nobody expected that the question will come from related to Mahatma Gandhi in Peking University on this kind of subject. Then he called me, and I went to him. I greeted him. I said, it is my honor today. I listened to you, and then he said, no, your question was really good. And Gandhi is definitely having limitations, but Gandhi is definitely having solutions for many things. Then I said, sir, can I have a photograph with you? He said, yes. Then he asked me, what are you doing? I said, I'm working on coal-based power plants and this. He said, you are asking me such questions on environmental and this. You are such a good person. Why you are not working in renewable energy? I said, I want to do that. Then he said, you must work in renewable energy. I said, I will work on renewable energy, but I will see how I can combine this this fossil fuel and this particular thing. So that is how, again, accidentally I came into solar energy, and then I started moving around, roaming around in China to different solar manufacturers. See, this is one plant. This is not a solar plant. This is one plant which I went, and this is how the solar and the coal based. This is a coal feeder. Those who have worked in power plant, they can understand. This is a coal feeder floor, and normally the coal feeder floor in any power plant is such a dirty. You will find lot of coal dust. You will see here very clean surface. It is a 1,000 megawatt plant on the coastal area on the south side near Guangzhou. So so there I found very clean, and the manager of that plant said, this is so clean, and we assure you, you can use this floor as your dining plate. You can have your food on this. You can eat it. You will not have a single dust in your stomach. So this is what is the cleanliness, the renewable energy. This is how I came into the renewable energy, and then my renewable energy started in 2010. I met Dr. Amartya Sen in 2009, and from 2010, when the National Solar Mission of India was launched in 2010 January, I started my journey. So he is the person who put me into this.
Yeah, when Dr. Amartya Sen tells you personally that you should work in solar and give up your solar or your sort of thermal power, yeah, like I imagine you listen, right? That's somebody who especially if it tells you personally. No, it's interesting because I maybe you don't know who you're listening. I did my master's in international development or development studies as it was called at the time in the University of Sydney. And I remember reading him and being very, of course, just amazed and sort of his whole perspective on development. But it's interesting that it really led you, and that's also some of the things that I find interesting.
But Borja, let me tell with all humility, that was a great occasion for me. He is such a very great person. I am nothing, but somehow we interacted, and because I had asked that question, he just asked me, and that question inspired me. My question gave me opportunity to meet him. His question inspired me to go to renewable energy. So I think questioning is important part of life. This is what one can take from this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, exactly. So if you ask, there you go. And that's maybe I feel encouraged by you, Gajanan. That's sort of what I see as my role here today and with the show is just asking the right questions. And I don't have any of the answers myself, but hopefully with people like you. And this is what's clearly interesting. I mean, and I'm curious. So your transition sort of from, you'd already been working, I don't know if you want me to name names, but you've been working in some of the largest sort of corporate power companies out of India already up until this point, and when you moved to China, you were already an experienced power project professional doing these massive projects. And how tell me about the transition to solar. How is it different? How are because you're working on large scale projects but also smaller scale. Tell me a little bit about
but before coming to this solar, Borja, you just mentioned that you seized this opportunity to ask the right question. Now, let me bring here my first day in my career. My first day in my career when I joined the state utility in Maharashtra. and I was asked to meet my manager, my reporting manager. And when I went to meet him, his name is Kasim Kunju, and he stays in Kerala today. Very amazing guy. And when I went to that office to report my joining, he was in the British Library. He had gone to British Library and he came in the second half. And when he came into the second half, he said me, sorry, I was in British Library. I had gone to study something based on which he was supposed to prepare a tender document for a advanced automation for the power plant. So that was my first day in my career. When I went, my boss was in British Library. That inspired me, and it created a very long relationship as a mentor. He was my mentor, and he told me one thing, and that is where I want to counter your point. I'm sorry, but I have to counter this point.
Please.
And he said, Joshi, there is no right or wrong question. The question is always right. The answer can be wrong. So whatever questions anybody can ask, you can ask, anybody can ask, the questions are always right. And he is the person who inspired me to ask the questions. And that is how he allowed me to work freely. Those who are joining today, if they are joining, they will know what I'm saying. He allowed me to freely work on the coal-based large-scale power plant. And that is how I went to Trivandrum that time to do some factory acceptance tests. And there I met another guy from UK. He had just come for his pilgrimage because he had just lost his mother. He was just 20 years elder than me, with a great experience in industry. And we were just roaming around after our office hours. So he asked me where you work. I said I am working in a planning department. He said how many years of experience you carry? I said only 4 months. He said then what are you doing in planning department? With 4 months, what are you going to contribute? Only an experienced person at site with great exposure to the site problems and with a hands-on experience, only that person should work in planning department so that the planning will be proper. And that is how the work at site will be much easier. I realized that part. When I came back, I told my this mentor boss that I want to go to site. He was amazed. He said, many people, they don't want to go to site, but you are the first person who want to go to site. And then he allowed me to go to site. That is how I developed a 360 view of any problem. And that 360 view problem actually helped me in understanding problems and the projects, the demand of the project, the site requirement, my manufacturer's requirement, other stakeholders' requirement. So I owe to that UK guy, I forgot his name. Today he must be, if he is listening coincidentally, I should say salute to him. I should say thank to him. So this is how I started my journey in coal-based power plant, fossil fuel. And because of my interest, my enthusiasm, my boss deputed me for training in US. Now here there is a very interesting, you can say my scientific mind. I was having a fear because that was my first air travel to abroad. And I saw the route from London to New York. It was totally over the ocean. I had a fear that when I will travel over the water, what will happen? If something happens, what will happen? I had a fear. After I landed, I started, when our plane took off at London, I was very much scared. It was a 6 or 7 hours journey. It was amazing. I cannot describe my mindset that time. When I landed, then we had training and this, and then we went to Washington, the Air and Space Museum. And there I went to one hall where a lot of people who have taken the whole world journey through their private aircraft. And I saw one very, very specific point that most of them, it was very clearly mentioned also, the route was selected maximum over the water. That was amazing for me. That why they have selected the route maximum over the water. And the reason was given there that there is a buoyancy force of water. See, if you somehow by accident fall into this water, the water will not first take you down. It will first allow you to come up, and then if you are able to swim, you can survive. So there is a buoyancy force, and that buoyancy force actually provides that necessary thrust, and that gives the necessary tail force to the planes. So my return journey, I was more happy over New York to London. So that is the amazing lesson learning for me in that. So it was I did projects in coal base, I did projects in gas base, then I did projects in lignite based power plant. This lignite based power plant is another story. It is a low quality coal with lot of environment damaging or not friendly parameters. I had a lot of struggle over there to make it more environment friendly, particularly the sulfur component in this. So this is how everything happened. That gives me a lot of confidence, hands-on experience, 360-degree view, and ability to see the thing from all the angles. And that is how I landed into Bechtel. Now, Bechtel is a very great organization from US. And that Bechtel taught me a very, very interesting lesson. And that lesson is not only for any technical or any technology or science, but you can correlate that to anything. So there is a complacency of tolerance, and that concept I studied particularly in Bechtel, and I owe great to those people in Bechtel. So if you see this graph, and if people are seeing, there is a function. This green color is a function. Now, when there is a change, the system allows it to control, and when there is a control, there is a ups and downs. But then slowly it comes near to the set point. The SP is a set point, so it comes to the set point. And when in a real life, when there is any set point, and the parameter is within the upper limit and lower limit, but what happens over a period of time, the human tendency is to take the elbow room and deviate from the set point. Then few occasions you go to the upper limit, or few occasions you go to the lower limit, and no accident happens. You feel, oh, these limits are useless, they are unnecessarily given, they are unwarranted, they are redundant. And then slowly you start further crossing those limits. Now, those who have designed this, they know the importance of this, but those who have not designed, but they are put on that job, they feel that, oh, I can do freely and I can deviate as much. They slowly forget the set point, and they have a new set point which is even above the upper limit or the lower limit. And then the accident happens. No accident in the world happens if you are within this upper limit or lower limit. If you are driving car, you are within the lane, no accident will happen. But there is a tendency of, if there is a aircraft getting crashed, it is only because of the complacency of tolerance. If there is an earthquake, somewhere we have done the complacency of tolerance. If there is a tsunami, we have abused the nature beyond the upper limit and lower limit. It has caused the tsunami.
If there's an outbreak of COVID-19 or another similar virus.
Yeah. So now see, pandemic of this corona is because of result of one complacency of tolerance. But after the coronavirus, when it was happening in China, others in the world, they thought nothing is going to happen, and they allowed the things to go beyond upper limit and lower limit. And that is how Europe, America, even in India, we are today facing the situation, because we did not control these things within the upper limit and lower limit. We should have acted much faster. Vietnam, on the very first day when the Wuhan first person got detected of corona, Vietnam immediately stopped the flights from China and on Hong Kong on the very first day in January. I'm telling you, in January itself. And that is how there is not a single death in Vietnam. So this is the concept you should utilize in every part of life, every walk of life. Even in our house, we do lot of things. in subconscious mind, we cross this upper and lower limit, and then you land into situation of accident, and you don't realize why you have done. But it is most of the time it is this reason.
No, it's interesting, and there's so much that I could talk about on this as well. I think this is a really interesting concept, and also, it really, especially in these times, I think it really makes a lot of sense, and especially when we talk, and that's why I really want to transition to talk about a little bit about the solar part, especially moving forward. Because I think this is a good transition point, and so not just with relation to of course the pandemics, but also with relation to climate change and sort of the possible longer term outlook for us as a human race. So I think personally, I'm obviously a big proponent of renewable energy, and also it makes a lot of business sense in many cases, including many of the markets. And you mentioned specifically Vietnam. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you see sort of the market development for solar? Where are the opportunities, especially for those who might be listening, who are impact investors, who are looking at opportunities? That a lot of my network they're looking for opportunities across asset classes in Asia. So tell us a little bit more about the sort of post-COVID opportunities now in markets like Vietnam, Sri Lanka, markets that you're involved with.
So see, renewable energies demand or renewable energy realization started much early, and many countries have taken the lead. But this particular situation or the appreciation of renewable energy after this particular corona pandemic has become more predominant. People have started talking about importance of clean energy, clean atmosphere, and clean atmosphere is basically some people were exploiting the nature, and some people were suffering because of that. If you see, after the Second World War, the Western countries, they utilized this fossil fuel in an exponential way. That created a big problem for the environment. But today, it is the responsibility of everyone, developing countries, developed countries, underdeveloped countries, to go with this clean energy environment. And that is where the sustainable development goals, which are set by United Nations, which makes a lot of importance. Now see, if you see the importance of solar, it has become very, very important. If you take India, now in India, many people are thinking that they will not go with a carpooling, but they will go with an individual car just because of the physical distance they want to maintain. They don't want to follow the public transport. They don't want to use this public transport to avoid this. Another thing is that because of in this last 50-60 days, we are able to see the clean sky. We are able to see the clean water. People have realized that it is there. So the clean energy is very much important. And it is across. I am traveling to Vietnam, I am traveling to Sri Lanka, I am traveling to Nepal. These are the very, very important parameters there. Now, what are the opportunities here? Since you mentioned this, I'm just touching, and let me caveat this part that I am also experiencing the COVID situation first time as everyone on this earth. So my guess is based on my understanding. Perhaps there can be a different view also. But if you take Vietnam is being seen as an alternative to China in the manufacturing sector. So a lot of countries from western side, Japan, Korea, they are looking at Vietnam as a competitive, as an alternative solution, and they want to move their manufacturing in Vietnam. Vietnam has got all the advantages of China, but they have some additional advantage that you can have a 100% foreign investment. You can have a land on lease very easily. And most important for any investor in Vietnam is that if you enter into a power purchase agreement with the state utility, perhaps you will get the tariff in the US dollar. So the hedging part and other things, this the dollar and the Vietnam Dong VND, that change, you should not be bothered of that. So that is one thing. But the other thing is that just before Corona, the local investors were very keen to invest in solar. Now, post-corona or during this corona, they are little bit scared about their liquidity issue. Though they have money, they feel the future is uncertain. So should I put the money or not? Now, when such situation is there, but there is a demand because there is a manufacturing setup. There is a huge manufacturing setup and all these manufacturers are export-oriented business. So those who are having a good intention to invest with a US dollar tariff revenue generation, the Vietnam is a very good thing, and you can have an option also. See, post-pandemic, whenever it will happen, maybe 6 months, 1 year down the line, when that confidence on the liquidity issue will be there, perhaps these people will take over this entire asset. So perhaps your investment will be blocked only for 2 or 3 years, or maximum 4 years. But you are assured that during this period, you are getting a good amount of revenue, and there is a good possibility of the local buyers taking over that asset. So this is one opportunity which one can see in Vietnam. And in Vietnam, industrial and commercial clients, there is a huge policy benefit given by the government. So you can have more than 8 cents US cents per kilowatt hour as the tariff, which I feel is a amazing one compared to any other thing.
Maybe for those of us, and yeah, it's been a while for me that I've really been actively involved in solar as well. How does that compare? When you talk about 8 cents per kilowatt hour, how does that compare with other sort of similar markets or other? Is that yeah? Give us a sense of where that lies.
Yeah, so you will see it is even 3 cents, it is even 4 cents, 3.5 cents. So it is going into that range. So whereas it is giving you more than 8 cents for industrial and commercial. Now, of course, people have doubt about the bankability of that, take or pay issue of that. But I am telling you, I have not seen any power purchase agreement with the utility where there is a take or pay possibility. So on the demerits, most of the demerits are common, whereas on the positive side, these are some of them. So one is industrial and commercial. That is one part. The other part, which is very important, is that Vietnam is also having a lot of farmers, and there are a lot of farmer community, and there are a lot of food processing plants. So having solar and farming, by some chance, if you have a combination, see, normally when you have a solar plant, you can't have a farming because the sun ray is obstructed and the photosynthesis process is not done. But this is where you can have some kind of innovation. And so this pandemic has thrown us a challenge for the innovation. And of course, there are a lot of innovative solutions available. One can think on that. So this is about the Vietnam. I'm coming to now Sri Lanka. Now, see, Sri Lanka has got a different.
Sorry, just before we go into Sri Lanka, because I mean, I think it's also fitting because we met in Vietnam on a trade mission where you, with Wattcraft, were trying to develop solar energy projects. You were one of the key sponsors of that event, and that's where we met, and that's where our friendship started. But so, where are we? Because that was, I'm trying to remember now what year that was, but that's got to be at least 4 years ago or so, 3 years ago at least that we were there. Anyway, why is it taking longer? 2 years. Oh yeah, sorry, time. But
no, it is not. It is, yeah, I will tell you, it is not. It is not actually taking longer. The certain areas, certain physical areas have got the transmission limitation, and that is how the government itself has given the time extension. Because of this, now they are developing. They are already developed now the power evacuation network, and now slowly all the plants will get commissioned. So because of that reason, in other areas, I will tell you, in other areas where there was no limitation and less number of projects were there, they are already commissioned. But there are certain areas where there are large number of projects with large capacity. So there is a evacuation challenge, and that government has realized later on. So the government has done. So that will happen.
Okay, so in summary, though, you're saying, I mean, Vietnam is a very good market for solar investments.
Vietnam is definitely a good market. One has to evaluate as compared to where all you have the opportunity, and in terms of revenue, how you are getting. So if you are going to some other country and there it is in the local currency, then you are under the risk of local currency and US dollar fluctuation, which is a very important part over here. The local banks are now very familiar with the solar technology, so they are also very positive in giving these loans to the developers and people. There is a great awareness because of these projects which have happened in last 2 years. There is a skill set developed at the local level. So now you have a skill set available at a very competitive rate. So this is how I feel the industrial and commercial, the regular grid connected, and as I said, the solar and farming combination. If one look at this, these are amazing opportunities in there. So now I'm going.
Just quickly, and I think also you mentioned, and I think that's an interesting point and probably relevant to many people. It stood out, right? Not from even the solar energy market perspective, but the way that Vietnam has dealt with the pandemic and where the sort of economy is going, how they've managed to sort of be less affected, at least than many of the markets that well, around the world, not just. But I mean, I'm here in the city of The Hague, where obviously, in Europe we've been quite heavily affected economically as well as obviously. But Vietnam, I think, has safeguarded both the economic as well as most of the health related crises that come with it.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And they have taken the advance action, so that has helped them.
And also, sorry to cut you off, but also I think one of the other drivers, and you mentioned this, but I really want to highlight is, of course, I think this isn't just a post-corona type of opportunistic. The manufacturing growth in Vietnam is something that's very long-lived. It seems like there's a really good opportunity. So I mean, I know at least from my earlier work already, sort of 2-3 years ago when I was organizing sort of conferences and trade missions to Vietnam, that it has a huge potential, obviously because of its size and everything, but a lot of the fundamentals. So that's an interesting one. So Vietnam, definitely. You also wanted to talk about Sri Lanka.
Just one point, last point on the Vietnam. It is more than Vietnam. The European and other countries are going to make that Vietnam is going to happen just to tackle the Chinese monopoly. So that is another factor we have to see at the international politics level. So let us come to now Sri Lanka. Please. So Sri Lanka has got a different dynamics. Now you see lot of political uncertainty, political ups and downs. So over last 10 years, there was not much focus on the power sector. And that is how the infrastructural development has lagged. Now, first time the government which has come, the president which has come, he has taken a very aggressive step and a long-term step now. And they are encouraging solar. Now here, there is a major driving factor is they want a power. They are striving, they are hungry for power. And they want power which has got a less gestation period. Now the only power today which has got less gestation period is solar. Even wind has got more gestation period because first you have to do the wind analysis of the local. Then you have
just the gestation period basically means how long it takes to actually get the power up and running, right? From the moment that you're sort of
the moment you get the order and you start commissioning and do see the generation analysis, the local analysis, all those things, it doesn't take much time. And then once you start, you can start and you can complete a 10 megawatt project within 6 months. The beauty of solar is that it can be also developed in a slow by slow manner. What you say is you have a 1 megawatt. Okay, good. You can finish 1 megawatt. Start evacuating power. You add another 2 megawatt. You start. You don't have to wait for entire 10 megawatt to be completed at one go. So that is another thing. So to coming back to Sri Lanka, they want the low gestation period power, so that because it is today their industry is getting hampered, their growth is getting hampered because there is no power. Now government has come. So recently they have come with a tender, but because of this pandemic, it has got postponed for 2 months. But there are other private opportunities are also coming, and the local banks are also very much keen to do this. And another important part is that the foreign direct investment is also possible. But because of small projects already done, the local expertise, local skill set is also available. The other part which is very important is that in Sri Lanka, this is one challenge actually. Most of the land is fertile. So you need to find an innovative solution where you can use less fertile land, or you can utilize the solar in such a way that the fertile land is still used for the cultivation and you can have a solar. So we are talking for such one or two opportunities where we can have a combination of solar and agri hand in hand coexisting without hampering the regular agricultural activities. They can have a food processing at the boundary of that, and then they can have a total integrated solution for that. So one is regular solar, rooftop and industrial and commercial solar, solar and agri together. There are a lot of water bodies. So floating solar is another very important thing. And nowadays, a lot of good floating solar technologies got developed. There are some very interesting technologies got developed in Europe also. And they will have very good opportunity over there. So if somebody is going along with the good technology and this is going to be another very good destination. So I would like to now come to my country, because I love my country and I want to say that India has got a good potential. India has already done more than 35 gigawatt of solar in different sectors. But India is still having a huge potential. The official target by 2022 is 100 gigawatt, out of which we have already completed more than 35 gigawatt. So the balance is there, that is anyway is there. But I feel after this pandemic or during this pandemic, there is a severe realization that people want quick power, and that industrial and commercial is going to throw a lot of opportunities. I have my own thinking that large scale utility scale projects will have to face some challenges because of the financial health of the state utilities. But direct solar power purchase agreement between the solar developer and the industrial will be definitely a encouraging move, a welcoming move, and industries will get boost for this. There is one point which I want to say, and I feel somehow nobody has touched so far. There is a huge migration, rather reverse migration of the workers from the big cities, from the industrial towns, from the industrial states to their original states. Now we have a different, rather I would say there is a different level of development happening in some states and in other states. So there are western states and southern states where we have a large industrial activities, manufacturing activities, large infrastructure development projects, whereas the labor is mainly supplied by the eastern part and the northern part. Now all these workers, they are the backbone for all these infrastructural development so far. See, the human tendency is that as long as you have something, you don't recognize their importance. Once you lose something, then you recognize the importance even a greater way. Now all these workers, poor workers, daily age earners, they are the backbone of this all infrastructural development, big buildings, bridges, roads, power plants, and you name any infrastructure, they are the backbone. If they are not there, you can't do that. All those workers have gone back or going back. Now with this psychological impact that their survival is under question, they may not come back. Some people may come back under duress, because of again hunger. But whenever they will come, they will always have some fear and their efficiency will be down. I feel personally, the best solution to them is we need to give them a good housing facility. We need to give them, they should not come back again in the slum. If they come again in slum, there is again outbreak going to be of the pandemic. We have to look for their facility. We have to give them good facility, good hygiene, all these things. So there is a requirement of the housing. Now that housing also, you can't keep on building the housing and take 2 or 3 years. Then your economy will be in even a bigger challenge. So what we did when I was there in China and we were doing the coal-based projects in India, we sent prefab housing material, and within quick time, those prefab houses, offices were built, and they were having all the amenities inside. You will have bed, you will have toilet, you will have kitchen, everything will be there. So, and they are very quick to build, very safe to live. And here what will happen? They need to also provide with the power, electricity. So I am telling that time we only send the prefab houses. I want to now combine it along with the solar. So the prefab house along with the solar and such multiple units, we must bring, we must use that, and these people should be allowed to stay there. I'm sure if they get a confidence that their life is getting dignified, if they feel that so far we did not get the dignity of their life, this is the way we have to give them dignity of life. Absolutely. They will come, and it is, I'm telling you, it is a very meager amount. I'm telling you, this is a very, very meager amount. But it increases the moral of the people, it increases the efficiency of the people, and it increases the throughput of the people. So if there are anyone who want to develop in this, those who want to invest into this, they can look into this combined solution of prefab housing, prefab colony of the workers, prefab offices, prefab all the amenities. And here I want to touch to this sustainable development goal. You see, there is a sustainable development goal, and what is that? It is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. That is one of the goals. That is goal number 9 of the UN.
I need to get my numbers. I need to learn them better.
Okay. So it is saying industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Now industries want to develop. They want these workers. So it has to be done in an innovative way, and it has to be done with a proper infrastructure. So I feel solar, and I'm telling you, this requirement of solar will run into gigawatt, not megawatt. It will run into gigawatt, and you don't need to have land or this thing. It will directly go on the top of the roof, and that will provide the required electricity, and it will give them hygiene. And moreover, the most important part is they will feel their life has got the dignity, and that will attract these laborers back. Whenever they will come only if they have this dignity, and when they will come with this, they will work even better way. And whatever we have lost in this 2-3 months, whenever we can definitely cover at least half of this time.
So this model that you're discussing, because I'm very interested, and I think and that's one of the things I love about solar as a technology. It's so flexible, and there's so many ways it can be applied. And what I find really interesting, and especially since we met, I've obviously been involved in a few other sectors. I'm doing a lot of work around financial inclusion, especially I'm doing a lot of work around justice, which is still, I feel, a relatively new. I'm learning every day. But these sort of cross-asset approaches, and also what I've learned from, which is a lot of my network, sort of impact investors and people who are trying to do good. The SDGs are clearly very important. They're trying to tackle as many as they can. You can't do them all. I'm very interested in this housing model. Is this something that you're really relating then still on the topic specifically of India? Or is this a model that you also see applying in other markets that you mentioned, like Sri Lanka and Vietnam?
If you ask me, it is going to be the requirement in not only India. India, I am telling specifically because there is a huge reverse migration of the labor. But it will go well, and it will be a welcome move in Sri Lanka. It will be a very good welcome move in Vietnam, and it is going to be. I'm telling you, recently I am talking to Myanmar for this particular opportunities, and Myanmar is one thing where solar is going. They are looking for solar. One of my friend had just returned from Myanmar just before the pandemic started, and there are huge opportunities are coming. Myanmar, you name Cambodia, you name it. we have to give dignity to the human. There is no other option. There is no other option. And this pandemic has brought this on a very, very large scale on the surface, that please give the dignity. Please honor these people, because they are going to make you survive. They are going to make you die.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we're hearing here from our listeners also, they very much agree with you. Good suggestion for migrant labor. And I'm not aware of this myself, but apparently Tata did the same thing at Jamshedpur. Are you familiar with this? Or?
Yeah. See, when Tata started this, you see, they developed not a industry. They developed a township. It is where the all workers, officers, everyone was staying there, and they were getting school, they were getting all amenities, they were getting everything. So giving them job and giving them salary doesn't end. This pandemic has shown that only giving money, giving salary doesn't end. You have to give and this is where I want to touch upon my tenure in Gujarat, where I was working. It was a 60-kilometer away in a rural area, and there was a huge challenge. We were having this lignite-based power plant. I know my first day we were sitting below a tree and we were eating below the tree. There was nothing. We developed a colony over there. We developed a school over there. I am basically a instrumentation and a control guy. I'm telling you, very, very interesting part. The automation of the power plant and these parts are my core subject. But there, when I saw that people will come, the good talent will come only when they see that their life is secure. And not only their life is secured, their family members also get the life over there. See, we employees work for 8 hours or 10 hours, but the employees' families are there in the colony. They need the social life. So I did the job of television networking over there. In those days, please remember, there was no channel or all these things very easily. So I wrote myself the tender for that, and then we implemented the television. I understood the basic things of that. Our corporate office was around 140 kilometers away from that place. It was in Baroda, we call it Vadodara in Gujarat, and our plant was at a location which was in a remote area. There was no telephone line in those days. Mobile was not there. Mobile handsets were not there. Nothing. Only telephone line. Only the landline. And to bring the landline from Surat to our place, 60-kilometer cable work. So the department of our telecommunication was not interested. I myself got involved into setting up VSAT technology. That is how I entered into the communication.
What technology? Sorry, what technology?
VSAT. That is very small aperture terminal. It is like 2 dish antennas, and those 2 dish antennas are remotely connected, and they send the signals to the satellite, and from satellite the signal is transmitted to the receiver. So the transceiver, they have, one is transmitter, another is receiver. So that technology I studied, I established that, and I was very, very happy on the day when I had a telephone call from our office at remote place to our managing director in Vadodara. So I am telling you that what somebody has written about the Tata and the Jamshedpur, that is the fundamental. See, India and the world recognize Tata as a visionary. It is not only making the steel, it is making the life. You create a life for the people, and that is what perhaps that gentleman who has written, he has written very correctly. So here, what I have done there is what the 360 is what the 360 degree analysis. Now here, if you allow me, I want to give a small story, if you allow me. Okay,
Please
my father, who is a literary figure, he introduced me to the world of books, and that time I got O. Henry's short stories in my hand, and there is one short story which touched my mind, and I can't forget it ever. So the story goes like this, very short. I will tell you. There was a old man. He was staying alone, and he was very punctual about his routine. And every day he used to go for evening walk. And while going for evening walk, on the way there was a bakery shop. He used to order his bread. While return, he will collect the bread and go to home. The sales boy in that bakery shop, the owner of the bakery shop, they were knowing this routine. So they were keeping his bread every day ready, and this guy was taking that bread to home. One day, this old gentleman, he entered into the shop. So the shop owner and the sales boy both got puzzled. Every day he is just ordering from the hand sign, and he is going for walk. Why he is coming inside? So then he went. They welcomed him. He said, "Today I want the bread, but I don't want the bread which you are giving me every day. I want a hard and rough bread today." So the sales boy said, "Okay, don't worry." While returning, the parcel was ready. This boy, this old gentleman, he took that bread, came to home. He had the canvas. He was actually a painter, so he had the canvas ready. He had the color ready. He took that bread. He put that bread into the color, and he soaked that bread. And he started putting the bread on the canvas to create some picture. But to his surprise, the color was not getting on the canvas. He tried again and again, it did not. Then he saw something very strange, and he got very annoyed. He was very furious. He immediately went back to the bakery shop. The owner and the sales boy again got surprised. What is this? What is so strange for today? This guy came once, now he is again coming, and he is from his face they were making that he is not happy. So he came and he started firing that sales boy. He said, "I had told you, you give me a rough bread, a hard bread. What you have given?" The sales boy said, I sprayed some butter on that." He said, "Why you sprayed the butter on that?" "Because of this butter, my bread was not soaking the color, and I was not able to create." He said, "You are old, you don't have your teeth, and eating the hard bread would have been a big problem for you. So to help you, I put that butter." Immediately that old gentleman realized that what that boy has done is actually he has thought in a different way, that this is an old man. Somehow he must have got a crave for this hard bread, but it should not give him trouble. And that is how he put that spread of butter on that. This story shows that when somebody is doing something, you have to think twice why that person might have done. And this is where one more takeaway from this. So there are two takeaways for me from this story. Is you should think before coming to the conclusion. There are many things happening. People do many things, and sometimes they are doing in a good intention. So you have to think it in a different way. The second very important, and which is very important for my career life, which I used always, that your instruction should be complete, clear, and concise. If your instruction is not clear, concise, and complete, then you are not at fault. That person is not at fault, but you are at the fault. Now here in this case, he told only that I want hard bread and this. He did not mention why he is buying this bread today. Every day he was buying for eating, but that day he was purchasing it for some work. So if he would have given that particular instruction, and this story which I read in my childhood has always guided me when I dealt with my career, my employment, my work, my project work, and all those things. So this is how that 360-degree view, giving the instructions to your team. If you are clear, and it is your duty to see that what is in your mind, the other person has understood or not, it becomes your responsibility. not the person's responsibility, other person responsible. So
that's an interesting story, and you told me that one before, and it also I really it made me think a bit about what's happening now, right? Because with regards to the current situation, with how different countries, different people within countries are trying to tackle different strategies on how to deal with the coronavirus effects. So not just the virus itself, but everything around it. Should we go into full lockdown or not? There's a lot of, I feel, division between people. But what I take most from this story, and when I apply it to this current situation, is I might sometimes as an individual or anyone have this, get frustrated with certain actions that people are taking. That I see a lot of, for example, people who go outside and interact with others are selfish. They don't think about others. They don't do, and in many cases, and I think what I hear from many of those that are, sort of, and I think this is across the globe, but let's say here in the Netherlands where I'm based, there's a lot of people pushing for, the lockdown to end or, full opening of everything. And we have a sort of phased approach and whatnot. And you see these discussions happening in so many countries. But I think what you have to realize at the end, everyone has the same intention. Nobody is trying to go out there and purposely, even those that are talking about herd immunity or these types of things, nobody's trying to kill, as far as I know, at least nobody's trying to kill millions of people. Everybody's trying. So even those that are trying to say, yes, we need to realize and accept that more people will die. And this is a hard thing also. This isn't even maybe my personal view. I partially agree with this, but we have to accept that this is going to happen. And the economic effects and the health related things that happen as we lock ourselves down, as economies suffer, as all these things happen. And I think where I hold, and this is where it's possible to have a discussion from your story, from this very, and that's what I like about you. You make things very visual. And this story is, to me, a very visual way, an old man asking for bread. My very first thing when hearing this is, why would he buy hard old bread? Well, to each his own. But there's a very specific purpose, and the purpose of this boy was also very specific, which is, there's an old man. Why would he be asking? I'm doing something. I'm doing you a favor. So these types of misunderstandings. And the second part, and just making a slight bridge back to China. I learned that a lot in China about clear instructions, about making sure that people understand you. And this can be very difficult across cultures, right? You think that you understand. I mean, from the most basic example, in some countries or most countries around the world, this means yes, that you agree, but in some countries it might not. Or for example, I'm still, and this is, I've done a lot of business at work and developed friendships with people in India, and the head bobbing, is an example of something which I really had a hard time struggling to understand and this whole contextual thing. But sorry, I'm going on a big rant, but this is a really, really interesting story. And I think especially in these times, it's very relevant.
Yes.
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, please. What were you wanted to add?
Yeah. So see, my point is that how people think, everyone is a human being. Everybody has got a brain. Everybody has got a mind, and everybody is thinking in its own way. How the child thinks is also very important. I give you one again, a very small thing. In late 60s, Bombay had a very big agitation, and there were fire incidences. Me and my brother, we were very small and we were school going. My brother was worried about not the other things. There was a political agitation and this and that, and there were fire incidents. We were knowing that there is a zoo in Mumbai, and zoo has got the animals. And my brother was worried that what will happen if there is a fire, what will happen to the animals into those zoos. Now you see, there is a world for everyone, and that everybody's world has to be understood, and everybody is there to teach you. Mathematics and physics, particularly science, is my interested subject. But chemistry was a little bit difficult for me to understand. But I'm telling you, when I was in China, I was teaching mathematics to my son over Skype, and I learned a lot of chemistry from him. from India, he was teaching me. So there are many people can teach you many things. You have to learn, and you have to work like a blotting paper. You have to absorb it. You have to assimilate it. You have to use it in your life. So this is how certain things have gone into this way. So this is how I came into solar. And you want to ask any specific point now?
I do. I have and this is an interesting point, which could open up. But we have a question actually from our one of our audience members, as how does solar energy compete with nuclear energy? And I think that's an interesting discussion.
See, people are very right in asking this particular question, but you have to consider apple to apple whenever you are comparing anything. Now, one is a kind of energy, another is a kind of energy, but that comparison doesn't end over there. What is the risk behind that? What are the other costs which are related to that, and how sustainable it is? See, these are two things. One is I agree with this person that perhaps nuclear energy might be a cheaper one, but a small thing going somewhere, you will be landing into a very big problem, and that is why we have to see on a sustainable basis, and that sustainable includes not only the self sufficiency in the electricity, but you have to see also what is the risk factor attached with that. I will give you one example. What happened in Japan, that particular leak, you know, it percolates into the earth. And once me and my team from Germany, we were sitting in a restaurant, and we had ordered for the this the mushroom related dish, and it was that truffle mushroom, but in India. And our German colleague, he called that main chef and asked, from where is this particular thing, from which country it is, and all those questions. And it was from Japan. So they said whatever has percolated, it has polluted even below the earth also, and it takes centuries to go away. Perhaps it may not go also. So what my point is, perhaps in certain angles it will be there, but in many angles it may not be. So we have to see the sustainable. I am just adding to this. Perhaps people will feel that the hydropower plant or coal-based power plant perhaps could be also cheaper here. But you see the cost of environmental aspect of that. If you are using coal-based power plant, you are emitting this CO2. There is a greenhouse part, and what is the health problem because of this, and how much cost you have to bear for that hygiene and environmental protection. So if you are adding all the costs, then you have to add every cost and then come to the end and then see what is that. I would still prefer, forget about whether I am working in solar or not, I will still prefer solar as against this, even on the energy cost basis.
Yeah,
I hope I have answered.
Yeah, no, I think so. At least from my perspective, I think. I mean, if I, yeah, exactly. I mean, you gave a lot of reasons why, but then, I mean, to wrap it up, you definitely think that over both from a sustainability as well as over time sort of cost perspective, you think that solar energy is more. It's a better option. And indeed, I think what's also, again, and we talked about this, but what's relevant to mention is that, of course, you come from a thermal energy background and chose to go into solar. So it's not even that you've just always been in solar and are trying to sell yourself. And that's also what I like about you.
Yeah, but here, since you mentioned my thermal background, I want to tell you that solar is not only solar photovoltaic. Unfortunately, solar has been only projected in the form of photovoltaic, but there is a solar thermal also. Basically, I entered into solar basically to integrate solar thermal into the conventional solar. I am telling you, this is the now right time to utilize the solar thermal technology, perhaps not in the terms of converting it into electricity, but using the low pressure and medium pressure steam from the solar thermal and augment it and enhance it into the conventional thermal power plant. I will give you one small example. You have a 500 megawatt conventional thermal power plant, and you are using coal to burn and to get that. Now, in the daytime, use solar thermal, heat the water, create a steam, and use that steam into this. To that extent, you will reduce the coal consumption. To that extent, your CO2 and other emissions to the environment will be less. And I feel this is a time when we have to think out of box. Pandemic, Corona has forced us to think out of box. And if you think out of box, there are many ways to use a solar in thermal, solar in PV, solar in agri, solar in industrial, solar in commercial, solar in residential, solar in floating. You name it, it is there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean, one of the more recent, again, I don't mean to hang, but this is something that's, of course, on many people's mind. But one of the more recent examples I've seen of solar energy being used for COVID-related things as well was an example. Actually, Arnergy Solar. I don't know if you're familiar. They're a solar company out of Nigeria. I met the founder, very interesting guy. But they sort of developed a PV powered testing sort of facility for in Nigeria, and I was wondering, I'm curious, I don't know if they can expand that further, but it seems like a very scalable thing, and it solves so many things. You know, the refrigeration. There's so many elements. I mean, we think of solar as an energy provide, you know, and it's a technology that provides energy, but it's so flexible. So
I think Borja, we have discussed on solar, but I will touch on solar because that is very important. That is the electrical vehicles, which is again another demand of the time and demand of the future. And as quickly it comes, it is better for our environment. So the electrical vehicles, and there is a huge potential in Vietnam, in India, huge potential, and government has made some policy, though not policy, but intentions are very clear that they want to go with the electrical vehicle. And when you have an electrical vehicle, you need the charging points, and these charging points can be charged through a solar source. So that is another integration, and it can go on a huge basis, and it will work on many years together, and it will help the solar to support our transportation in a much cleaner way, in a much safer way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I know you've already linked to this, but we got an interesting sort of comment coming in, and I'm curious if you agree with Mr. Arun Chatre. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but the combination of solar and thorium-based nuclear will be a power for India for the next 300 years. Do you agree?
Yeah. See, I'm not an expert on the nuclear part, so people have to excuse me on that, and it is not good on my part to make any such comment on this. But people see that is what I'm saying. If there is an innovative way to do that, most welcome. And now this gentleman, Mr. Arun, who has given this, must be a very valid point. Must be an experienced person, and it is a very good. See, this Arun I know very well. He has spent his entire life in nuclear power corporation. So what he is telling makes a big difference. It has got a value. People have to think on this line how we can converge these two and make it. I'm very thankful to this my friend Arun. He has brought this aspect. I will also study this. It gives me also some subject to study.
Maybe we can do a future episode on this. I think that could also be interesting. I don't know if you're aware. There's a recently released documentary called Planet of the Humans. Have you heard of this, Gajanan?
Yeah, please tell something.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this. I just saw it yesterday, and I don't really want to get into it too much. I was thinking about doing an episode, but it's a sort of critique in a way of renewable energy and also but I'm curious. So this is maybe something we could maybe even have.
That will be very interesting. That will be very interesting. Yeah.
I also want to take the opportunity. Now that we're speaking of friends, there's a friend of mine also who is on the stream, Mr. Saifuddin, who's joining us from Bangladesh. He's a big fan, I think, of some of the work we do. I'm a big fan of the work he does, and very happy to see him on the stream. So hi, Saifuddin, a big shout out first. No, it's really great to also see this interaction.
I want to just say to this gentleman from Bangladesh. Bangladesh has got a very high potential of floating solar, very high potential, and that is one country where floating solar can go a long way.
Absolutely. We have another question actually, which I think is also interesting, and I also need some clarification on. I'm quite ignorant when it comes to these things. But what is MSEB in this case? Is it viable in India to supply electricity to MSEB from home solar plants?
Yeah, so this is a state utility where actually my initial career was. This is that same organization. So is it viable to do in India to supply electricity to MSEB? See, government is already having a policy which is called net metering. When you have a net metering policy, you can have your solar plant on your home roof. You can utilize it, and you can also excess electricity can go to utility, and you get the credit for that either in your bill, or if your export is excess to the utility, you get some money revenue into that. So it is definitely viable. Definitely viable.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, interesting. And I'm also being mindful. I can't believe it. I'm looking now on the corner of our screen. We've already been streaming for almost 2 hours. And there's actually so many things. I'm still really enjoying this. I could go on for at least another hour, 2, 3. I think there's many topics. And I think actually, I hope you are as well. I'm really enjoying this, and also the interaction from our friends. I know that, especially our friends, I chose this time of day specifically for this show to try to get a global audience, thinking it might be a bit late. So all of you who are joining us from India, from Bangladesh, from other parts of Asia as well, I really appreciate that you're also joining in quite late, as of yourself, Gajanan, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, no, maybe we can switch as well. Like, one of the things we haven't talked about, I mean, your current role with Wattcraft. You've been, and this is again one of the things I love about you. You're a very humble person. You talk about yourself. You don't like to sort of big yourself up, or the organizations where you're working. That's one of the pleasures I've had of working with you in the past. But tell me a little bit more about Wattcraft and what you're doing with Wattcraft right now.
See, Wattcraft is a young company, and when I say young, the average age in our organization is below 30, and that is a very, very important factor, that if you have a good combination of experience and young, takes you to a different height. And young people, they have a lateral thinking. Young people have a lateral thinking. Do you have that mathematics slide? If I had given you.
Yes, I think I do. I need a second to pull it up, but yeah, just start talking about it and I'll pull it up.
Yeah. See, please. If you have young people, you get a different kind of views. You get a lateral thinking, and that pushes your goals. See, here there is a teacher. This has circulated a lot in a different context, but I am looking at this point in a much different way. You see, the example which the teacher has taken to explain is, the first example is x tends to 8, number 8. 1 upon 8 minus x is equal to infinity. Now the example is taken as 8. Now the student who could be a young child is thinking in a different way. The child mind is perhaps an artistic mind, is a creative mind. And that creative mind has come in the down, and that is how the answer has come. People are laughing at this answer, but I am taking it in this way, that this particular student who has given this has got an artistic mind, has got a creative mind. If the teacher would have taken the reverse way, if the teacher would have explained x is equal to 5 and that example to teach, then perhaps the answer would have been different. So my point is, Wattcraft is a young team with young people, and young people are giving the thrust to the business. Our team in Europe, we are a European company based out of Germany. We are in solar, we are in renewable, we are across entire European countries. We are doing very big, and our growth is fantastic. Our leadership is fantastic. We are also doing in Asian countries. See, everybody will talk good about the company, but let me talk in the context of the pandemic, and that is what I want to stress about Wattcraft. In pandemic situation, when it has started, we are hearing every day organizations are firing their employees. Organizations are removing their employees. People are searching for the job. There is a huge increase in the jobless situation. correct? But in the last 6 months, Wattcraft has recruited more than 16 people in Europe and in Asia. And out of this, 50% after the pandemic, this is very important. I want to tell that any organization, the human strength is important, human resource is important. That is your wealth. Without human, you cannot do. And Wattcraft has shown that courage. And Wattcraft, that is where the confidence of the Wattcraft management and their leadership is. They have recruited 6 to 7 people during the pandemic. That is giving the strength to the organization, and that is how we are developing. That is what is Wattcraft. We are the system solution provider. We have great technical leadership. You met Francisco. So Francisco is our technical head, fantastic guy, and anybody who talks to him will always love to talk to him. We have Giovanni, who is our CEO, another very interesting guy. We have Marco. You know our Marco, very dynamic and very pushing, very demanding, but at the same time a very human face.
Yeah,
We have a new friend now. He is a good finance guy. He's a Dr. Yusuf Sayed. You talk to him, you will get lot of your financial things cleared. He is a good teacher. He himself was a teacher, and he is. So all these people I'm telling you about our Europe.
yeah,
We have in India a very young and dynamic team. We have Divya Prakash Choraria. He's a very young management guy. But I'm telling you, I have seen that young boy with a very human face in the business. Very good, very polite, but very result oriented. So what we are doing is we are across the board in solar. We are doing the solar agri, floating solar solutions. Amazing. We are in inverter. We are in this. So we are doing many things.
yeah,
See, like somebody mentioned about Tata. So Tata says we do this, we do that, we do that. We also do this. So like this, we do solar, we do this, we do this. We also develop the human strength.
Yeah.
We also develop the confidence of the human. That is our Wattcraft.
Yeah, no, and it's so great. No, it's great. You mentioned Francisco and others that are still on the team. They were also, of course, I met them in Vietnam where we first met as well. That was part of that same trip, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, we had the chance to obviously spend like a full week together. We traveled together from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh, or vice versa.
Yes.
Ho Chi Minh we started in Hanoi, right? Yeah, we started in Hanoi. But anyway, that was it's so great to know, and I think that says a lot about the company and you know the people in it, that you're all still there. It almost didn't feel like work, that trip. I remember just being, you know, really enjoying the time. Francisco, I remember him quite well because he has this incredible mix of also Spanishness. I mean, I'm originally, for those of you who don't know, from Spain, and he's half Spanish, half German, and I really connect with him very well also on the cultural aspects. So. No, great. This is so good to see. And so some key markets. I mean, you mentioned, right, like the markets that you've sort of mentioned: Sri Lanka, India, Vietnam. These are some of the key markets, especially you're focusing on.
Yes. Another 2 markets which are also going to come in a big way. One is Oman, which is going to come. And let me also tell you that Oman, because I have visited Oman. So Oman, there is a big bank which is called Muscat Bank, and Muscat Bank has taken a policy decision. It is already announced, and Muscat Bank is going to give the financial support to all their account holders, all their customers, to develop solar on their residential property. So it is a very interesting and very encouraging move by any bank so far, and particularly in Oman. So Bank Muscat is going to give financial support, but only thing is they have to select amongst those selected vendors, and our partner over there is definitely one of the selected, one of the approved vendors into that. So Oman is again, and this business is also going into gigawatt. Another one is Nepal. So again, I'm saying Nepal, though there are small pockets, but we have to also look into these countries, because these countries are going to give you lot of opportunities and lot of innovative opportunities. I already mentioned you about Myanmar. It's definitely going to make a big difference. Yes,
absolutely. No, in Myanmar, I think is also adjusted from many different perspectives and for many sectors related to development. It's a very interesting example. A very interesting market. No, great. No, I'm really glad to see also that all that work is on Wattcraft, and again, I'm also trying to being a bit mindful of the time. I wanted to maybe sort of end on the topic of partnerships, and we were talking about in the preparation for this, and I think you suggested this. I was very happy to sort of end on this topic because I think that's something that can take us all forward, and also in looking beyond solar and everything. You had some interesting points you wanted to bring up on partnerships, and especially around SDG 17 and what types of partnerships are needed to really move solar energy and renewables and sustainability forward.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, that one is the infrastructure partnership where I already mentioned that we have the prefab residential colonies. We have the offices with prefab with solar on the top. That is one thing. We have agriculture and solar is the another one. We have solar thermal, where thermal power and solar thermal joining hands together, and we have solar and the electrical vehicles is the another one. And this solar thermal which I mentioned can be very widely used in lot of process industry, like dairy dairy farms, like paper mills, like other process industries, everywhere, chemical, you name, anywhere where there is a steam requirement, you can have this solar thermal and reduce your fossil fuel consumption. So these are all partnerships you can do with, and the investors which are interested, for them these are variety of the options available on the platter, and they can choose whichever area they want, and then we can have the technology provider, we can have the project management provider, we can have the investor, and we can have the market for that, and this is how we can start this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think again, and also see that, and I think we're gonna have to have you back on the show, Gajanan. I think there's many things we could elaborate on to get in a bit more. But it's interesting, and I also see, the same parallels with the partnerships across sectors, but also when we're talking about the different types of investment needs. I think solar is an interesting one. You gave the example of Tata, and I know Tata has also partnered recently with Rockefeller Foundation to sort of launch a big off-grid initiative in India as well. And I think these types. So again, this is an example of a foundation. There are so many, again, with the flexibility. Solar, I think what to me at least makes solar so interesting is
there is one more thing. Yeah, there is one more thing. Since you mentioned this, there are a lot of NGOs who are actually they are already working into the skill set development of the people at the ground level. So there are a lot of such organizations who can come, do the funding, and we can develop the skill sets for these people to take care of all these kinds of renewable energy requirements. And these NGOs will take care of the ground reality, ground development, and these funding agencies can support them and bring also innovative ways of teaching, innovative ways of training, innovative ways of refreshing the already working people, and bring all those lessons learned from other places to here. So that is another very good partnership.
No, absolutely, and I think that also, even in the sort of whole purpose of this show and the guests that we have lined up, I have a very long list of people I want to interview. I'll also mention that for those of you listening, and actually for you, Gajanan, giving me suggestions of people who you think are interesting in this whole.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because I think there's many parallels and there's a lot to build on. So I think I especially like your idea, and that's actually someone who's on my list. Is from a sustainable housing sort of perspective, more from like affordable housing and how affordable housing and energy and water and other sort of services come together.
Absolutely.
And where,
absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think I mean,
and especially after this pandemic situation is over, to boost the economy, that is very, very important in my own way.
Absolutely. No, and I think there's many examples, and this is sort of the challenges that I'm now working on largely with Hill as well, and trying to set up a justice fund. There's many innovative ways in which projects and companies can be financed, especially when there's a direct sort of beneficiary. That's a very NGO language, but when there's like a sustainable development goal behind it, when there's something green or something inclusive or something to these projects, and you see ultimately a lot of the same investors are investing across these asset classes. So a lot of the relations that I have, and next week's guest, we have Lend a Hand, which is a crowdfunding platform, and I know that solar for them is one of the also asset classes in which they have invested. It's a very safe investment, and I'm very curious to also hear from them and build. We'll definitely do more episodes on solar. And I think, I hope we can have you back again to get a bit more depth, maybe even bring you on with a different sort of speaker. But again, I also really want to give a big shout out to all of you who have listened in. Thank you, Saifuddin, for listening in. I appreciate your message saying thank you very much to both of us for this wonderful discussion, and passing a fruitful Corona time. Great. No, this is what the show is all about. Saifuddin, he'll be in contact. I love this, and please, this is something I
would love to meet as many people as possible. That is my passion. That is my passion also.
Yeah, and especially in these times. I mean, I obviously it's maybe a very quick, but you have to give me a short answer on this. When do you think you're next going to be traveling, Gajanan? Because I know this is something that you travel a lot across Asia for these projects. When do you estimate roughly that your next flight to a country, to Vietnam or another country, will be?
I hope the first country perhaps I would travel is either Vietnam or Sri Lanka, and that could be in the month of August.
Okay.
Could be in the month of August. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Perhaps it would be even earlier, so. But I hope at least by August it should be.
Mr. Prakash Dandekar, thank you very much. He's saying thank you to me, and also, of course, thank you to you, Mr. Joshi. Very happy to have you on board. Thanks for your great questions.
Thanks.
Yeah. No. This is great. This is great. No, and again, what I'll do as well. I realize it's been a long broadcast. This link stays live. The recording of this webinar will be there. I'll be sharing this around as well. I highly encourage you. If you found that this is interesting, if you know someone which can take something from this, because I think also one of the main reasons also I wanted you as a first guest, Gajanan, and in your response is, this is all about sharing knowledge, right? This is not about, and you made that very clear, this is not about promoting your work and promoting yourself, and this is really about trying to bring knowledge that can contribute to a better world. I mean, I know it sounds a bit sort of cheesy, but I think that's where we come together very well, Gajanan, and I really appreciate your contributions.
Let me say a few words now about you, because you have given my introduction, but at the end I'm saying, see, I met Borja in Vietnam, and I found a very, very big spark in him. He is doing many things across the board. He is doing many things. He is a magnet, and he is a magnet which is attracting the people. Today we have many people who are repelling the people, but today Borja is one which is hope, which attracts the people. So Borja, I would say you are the human magnet. I would say that.
Thank you. You're way too kind, Gajanan. And I also realize that, and this is where I can rely on the quality of guests, the people that I bring on board. So I mean, this is really nothing. Again, coming back to your point of asking, I hope I asked many of the right questions.
No right, no wrong. It is the question.
That's right. There's no right, there's no wrong question. I definitely need to remember. But then maybe interesting questions. At least I was very much interested. Based on the comments that we're getting, I think that this is something that people also appreciate, and I really hope to continue these discussions.
So before you conclude, let me thank Borja that he gave me this honor to be his first guest. He had taken a very big risk, but I hope I have helped him in such way. Whatever good has happened is only because of Borja, because he encouraged me. If something has gone wrong, or if I have mentioned something wrong, or if something is not liked by anyone, you give me that credit, If you like something, give credit to Borja, because Borja is doing a great job, and it is a definitely honor. I will definitely remember this, and I would be always a patient listener to your all next episodes, and I wish a grand success. I'm telling you, I want this particular episode is the need of the time. There are people talking about many things. There are bad things. There are miseries. There are many things. But we have to come out of this. This is the life. The corona has shown us that similar coronas will come. There, it is not the end of this. After this, perhaps somebody else will come. But we as a human, if we are strong and we are in a global fashion, we are strong. Nobody can beat us, and we will overcome every situation. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Borja, once again for this.
Thank you indeed, and thanks once again to all our guests, Mr. Arun. Yeah, indeed, we've covered a lot of different topics today, and I hope many of them were relevant.
I'm especially thankful to Arun, because he brought that combination of nuclear and this. Definitely, it is a good point for study. So once again,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank
so
you.
Borja, over to you now.
I don't want to, I don't have much else to say. Like I said, I mean, I don't even want to end this, because I feel like this conversation, you've left me with a lot to think about. And I feel like every time we've spoken, and again, this is why this is similar to a lot of the conversations, right, that we've had in the past. And this is the type of, at least I feel very inspired. I feel very inspired by this. I feel, just it's been a very nice and interesting conversation, and I highly encourage any of the listeners of today's show, if you'd like to contact Gajanan directly, feel free to sort of do that through me, and I'm happy to make these introductions. I know, and I hope again that this can stimulate some new thoughts. It can stimulate maybe some new partnerships, as we ended on, and hoping to see many of you back on the next episode. But again, I want to thank you, Gajanan, for being on today's show, being our first guest, sharing your knowledge, joining us late in the evening from Mumbai, and yeah, just thank you.
Thank you, Borja. Thanks to everyone who have participated. Thank you.
And yes, we end today's first episode with what I found to be a very interesting guest. Again, we will be back live every Wednesday. We will be sort of speaking with different inspiring people. I'm always open and looking for suggestions. So if any of your listeners, want to share something yourselves, or if you know somebody who might be interesting, as I mentioned, next week's episode will be with Kunte and Tobias Grinvis from Lend-A-Hand, which is an incredible crowd lending, sort of crowdfunding platform. We'll hear a lot about what they're doing, how that builds also with solar. Again, thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. I really look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, have a wonderful week ahead.